We now move on to the work that's being conducted in the Global North. We heard a little bit from Dr. Dave Henderson about the work that's going on in Boston and in Massachusetts in terms of the nexus of law enforcement, policing, and the reform that needs to be had in the interaction and the actions of the police with vulnerable populations, people with severe mental illness. And we have with us today, all the way from Los Angeles, Dr. Pietro D'Angelo, who has collaborated on hundreds of cases with local, federal, and international authorities in the United States, around the world, gained extensive experience with violence risk assessments for people experiencing mental health crises. Dr. D'Angelo will present on the ROAR model that stands for Respond, Observe, Assess, and React, which minutely dissects facets of field response and is considered a roadmap to de-escalation, crisis stabilization, field dynamics, and decision-making. I welcome Dr. D'Angelo to start his presentation and would like to mention that we miss Sergeant George Suarez, who can't be with us today, who prepared this presentation and works alongside Dr. D'Angelo very closely at the LA County Sheriff Department. Thank you and welcome, Piero.
Thank you and good morning. So, you can prepare for something and then you're seated there and you hear all these motivating and fascinating accounts, and then what happens to your pre-planned speech? It goes down the drain because now you're motivated, you want to do something differently. So here we are. I've changed my plans about what I wanted to say because of the great work that was done with the initial panel. And I got to tell you, I've been in this city about 24 hours, my first time in India, and I'm incredibly motivated, fascinated, and I've been calling back home, talking to my family, and discussing the beautiful things I saw yesterday with the various programs within the Banyan. So thank you for our inclusion all the way from Los Angeles. And a couple acknowledgments. One acknowledgement is, it's so hard, when the law enforcement topic comes up, there can be some very strong responses for various reasons. We have people from different countries here, from just different backgrounds and experiences, law enforcement experiences. So it can be a sensitive issue to discuss. And frankly, I am proud to say that that's one of the things that I seek to improve at a local level around the Los Angeles area. So the acknowledgement of this, I hope it doesn't cause discomfort to talk about law enforcement response, because what we're trying to do is improve law enforcement response. So that's the first acknowledgement. The second acknowledgement, again, is that this presentation was intended for two people, myself and George Suarez, who's a dear friend and a sergeant on the department, but he couldn't make it. And so it's kind of like when you order a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but you're told you got to choose either peanut butter or jelly. You can't have both. So you guys could not have both today. You're just getting either peanut butter or jelly. So, all right, so a little on my background. 2004, I'd been a psychologist for a couple of years already in Los Angeles, and I'm hired by the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health to function as a clinician, and I'm assigned to the Los Angeles Police Department mental evaluation team, LAPD mental evaluation team. So I am responding in a police car with the police officer from LAPD, responding to psychiatric crises in the field. That job was so fascinating, I did not have a hobby for the duration of me working there. Because when I went to work, it was just fascinating, fun, and just a wonderful experience. So I did that for a couple of years. Then I did the same job with the Sheriff's Department. I don't have the time to get into the difference between police departments and sheriff's departments. There is a difference, you can look it up. It's not that big of a deal, but there is a difference. So I did this kind of field work with LAPD, and then I did it with the Sheriff's Department. What was fascinating is that as we would respond to a psychiatric crisis and we would have someone in crisis, the police officer or deputy I was working with, so I'm the psychologist, I'm working with the cop, many times I'd get to see, well, not many times, but every time I'd get to see what kind of skills this cop had in dealing with a person in distress. Do you think those skills varied? A lot. Sometimes things would go really, really well, and sometimes I needed to work more than, more so, right? So this went on for years. And then there were times when, as part of my job at the time, working for the Department of Mental Health, I would be assigned with a fellow clinician, and then we would respond as a 2-clinician team to someone's home, to a school, or what have you. So there were those situations as well. A lot was learned in all those. For about a dozen years, I did that. So you start asking questions about these experiences after a while. And so some of what you'll be seeing here today is based on those experiences. In 2016, I came to the Sheriff's Department. I'd started there about 10 years earlier. Now I come back, about 15 years earlier. Now I come back, and I come back as an instructor. So since 2016, I've been an instructor to the deputy sheriffs of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Okay, so these are the ones now that are responding to the calls. So while doing that kind of work, I became acquainted and ultimately a very good friend of someone by the name of Jeffrey Diedrich, a giant of a person. You'll be seeing him shortly in a video. And Jeff Diedrich is in charge of the Sheriff's Department's Homeless Outreach Services team. So these are deputy sheriffs that go out in the community and engage homeless people. Very delicately. Very, very delicately. They never touch anybody. They never arrest anybody. It is done in a very social work type of manner. We invited Dr. Medzina a few years ago to come and view the Homeless Outreach Services team from the Sheriff's Department, and we learned further from his practices over in Trieste, Italy, from the world-renowned model. So as Jeffrey Diedrich was overseeing his team of deputies, it became apparent that there was another dynamic that we had not yet identified. And this is the beauty of multidisciplinary work. Because the cops are doing something that the cops didn't know they were doing. So as a psychologist from the outside, it's like, hey, Jeff, do you realize what you guys are doing? So I referred Jeff to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You guys remember that? Okay. What's the foundational level of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So it's the physiological, okay, so I got to have some clothing on. I've got to have maybe something, some shelter, something, all the basics, right? What's the second step? Safety. Wait a minute, Jeff. Your people are actually providing the safety and security to the vulnerable. Because when Jeff's deputies respond, they're responding to the homeless people as victims, not as perpetrators. Ooh, wait a minute. That's a little different. Again, I'm here talking about law enforcement, and as I'm speaking with you, you are absorbing this information from your filter and your biases through your experiences. So you may be thinking, this doesn't make sense. These are cops. Cops arrest, cops punish. For the most part, they do, but there are exceptions. And this is the special group that you'll be hearing about in a moment and seeing a video about. Then there's another trend in the United States, the need to convert law enforcement from the warrior mentality to the guardian mentality. So that's something else that's been explored and is actively, it's like, hey, remember your role. You're not the warrior, you're the guardian. The warrior modality may be appropriate in certain places, but the guardian modality is also appropriate in certain places. There are horrible statistics surrounding women who are mentally ill and homeless. The statistics we've seen suggest that about 95% of them are raped. Where's their safety and security? So what I'd like to do is show you a video about the Homeless Outreach Services team. And please keep an eye on, besides trying to absorb everything you hear, keep an eye out for that safety and security second step of Maslow's hierarchy of needs as it's highlighted here. And also note, again, that concept of instead of warrior, guardian effect that these folks enact.
Lieutenant Jeffrey Diedrich of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Homeless Outreach Services Team. What makes the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Homeless Outreach Services Team unique is the personnel that were selected, the training they receive, the policies and protocols that we have in place, and the collaborations and the collaborative partners that we have to do this work. We learned early on that it's important to rely on those traditional collaborative partners, the Department of Mental Health, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and other homeless outreach partners. But it's also important to expand that network, reach into the community, and find those that are willing to help make their community a safer place, but do it in partnership. And that's the essence of community policing, doing it together. That way everyone has a vested interest, and we learn from them and they learn from us, and that's a true partnership. The WAR model, which is the roadmap to success in this new age, it's a paradigm change for law enforcement. It's a way to maximize de-escalation, minimize escalation, and empowers deputies with the tools to recognize those windows of opportunity when action can be taken and when it's time to simply use another method.
They are at the lowest of their personal lives, and they've gone hit mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, and they have no place to go.
We're only there to provide outreach. We're trying to help them out. And I think from the very get-go, we're able to build that rapport when they see that we're not there trying to engage in law enforcement activity or enforcement, and we're there to ultimately help.
I signed up to be a deputy sheriff to make a difference, to help people out. And if I have to take that step to help my partners out, to help the community out, to help everybody out, it's just something I'm going to do. From day one, this has always been the dream, to be able to help people out.
It's a lot. It weighs a lot on myself because I'm so in tune with everything due to the fact that personal experiences from psychological problems, such as my mother had, my sister passing away from drug overdose, she had psychological problems, even being homeless at a young kid's age, the hopelessness that I felt. So it hits every aspect of my family.
When we're in those encampments and taking the time to connect someone to get them out of there, and that's why we say it's a humanitarian effort. We don't want someone to degrade more and more and more, because that's what happens in a homeless encampment. Doesn't matter what condition someone is when they start, but they will degrade from day one. Not one person has gotten better in Los Angeles County by living in a homeless encampment.
With her being transported by fire and by paramedics to the mental health hospital, our MET team and DMH will follow to make sure that they get there okay, properly. No follow-up, so they'll get all of the information from the doctor. After she's had her 72-hour hold, they can follow up and be able to reconnect with her to see what we can do and what MET can do going forward to help her with housing or resources or whatever else she needs. And that's where our other civilian outreach partners are.
The host team is successful in what it does. It reaches individuals where they're at. It connects them to family members. It helps link them to services that they otherwise would not have known or may have received willingly because of the safety and security we're able to bring to the environment. It is the only model that I have seen that's effective, and I've traveled the U.S.
You make every effort to go back and fulfill whatever it is that you can to try to help this person. Maybe that step that you thought might have been correct may not be correct for that person, or maybe the step they thought for themselves might be correct, may not be. But every effort is always made to go back and follow through. The name of the game is to follow through with the person, because ultimately your job is to go out there and help your community, and if you don't follow through, then you're not helping.
We met this female individual, her name's Candace, and we had a great talkative relationship with her. She was just really cool. She did go to PCC college. She was an athlete. She lettered in softball, soccer, and I think volleyball, she mentioned. She's been out here for several years.
I have the drive, you know what I mean? I do. I know that, like, I want more than anything to see my kids again, you know?
So what if we start that today?
It's heartbreaking to me, and if I can make that connection as a mother and just get her to see what she's fighting for, and to have that be her main focus, I think that can help get somebody through and be better and get back in her children's lives.
There's a place where certain situations intersect. Those paths are sort of a dichotomy. They are opposites. When you see the destitution of man intersect with the goodwill of man. And that point right there.
The LA County Sheriff's Host Team enacting the LA County Homeless Encampment Protocol has had 100% success to date. No arrests, no uses of force, no lawsuits, and every homeless encampment that we have addressed have been cleaned up 100%. Thank you for having us here today. It's an honor for me to represent the men and women of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Homeless Outreach Services team. Their dedication to duty, their compassion, and their dignity are unmatched, and I'm proud to represent them.
So, did you see the Guardian versus Warrior effect? How about the focus on the security, safety and security from a Maslow perspective? I mean, they do phenomenal work, and since I don't do field work anymore, looking at it from the outside in, I mean, it gets to me. I could tell you many stories where they've saved lives, as you're saving lives, right? And that's the beauty of this work. So let's switch over to Roar now. And because this is something that, in speaking with Jeffrey Diedrich, as he oversaw his host people, he realized, wait a minute, what you teach in Roar is what my guys have been doing, but we didn't know we were doing it. So think of Roar as the roadmap. See, you may have a map that you don't realize exists, but you're still traveling through those areas. So what we believe, this is a bold statement, but we believe we've decoded field response. So in other words, what's done in field response, we've captured here. So I have to go very fast right now through Roar. Bear with me, because this is like about a 90-minute presentation. I have to do it in about 10 minutes, okay? So real quick, name a de-escalation technique. What's a de-escalation technique? There's thousands of them. What's that? Be nice. Okay, cool. And how do you know when someone's being nice? Give me a behavior. Listen. Okay, so you're listening. Okay, how about tone of voice, distance? So these are all techniques. These are all things that everybody here does. Okay? What we realized is that people are using de-escalation techniques, but there's no anchoring in a model. You're all professionals here. What if you did techniques without anchoring it onto a model of something? Do you think that doesn't sound right? So when it comes to this de-escalation business, we believe that there's a huge gap. And so we've been trying to fill that gap. Okay, most people would say de-escalation, so you have high intensity situations and low intensity. And de-escalation is about bringing it down, correct? All right, so de-escalation is about reducing the intensity of a situation. In America, we're really focused on that. But guess what? We're missing something. What are we missing on the other side? Escalation. We're so focused on de-escalation that we think we're overlooking escalation. Here's the danger. Tell me if this is not true. Anytime you're dealing with someone, you're thinking, I hope this doesn't get worse, and I hope it gets better. Is that not correct? You're thinking, I hope it doesn't get worse, and I hope it gets better. So your behavior now with this person is going to be based on this. Okay, I hope it doesn't get worse. I hope it gets better. The trouble is that we mostly focus on de-escalation techniques without then considering escalation, and we believe that's a blind spot. That's a blind spot that could lead us to using an inappropriate de-escalation technique because we're not using both. We're not considering both possibilities. If we had more time, I could go into greater examples, but this is a pitfall, especially for law enforcement, because they're looking to calm things down, but they're not thinking about the prevention of escalation. We'll come back to this in a few moments. So we don't like the term de-escalation because when we talk about de-escalation, we're omitting escalation. So we like to use the term crisis stabilization because through crisis stabilization, we are minimizing escalation and maximizing de-escalation. Crisis stabilization involves minimizing escalation and maximizing de-escalation. How important is it, so as a police psychologist, how important is it that the cop that shows up to your emergency is in a good mental state? Is that important? So 2023 was a horrible year for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Ordinarily, we lose 1 to 2 people to suicide yearly. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, we have about 10,000 deputies, 10,000 cops. We lose typically about 1 to 2 a year to suicide. How many do you think we lost in 2023? Anyone want to take a guess? 11. I wish I had a prize for you. That was very close. Horrible year. We're in a bad, there's, again, I don't have the time to get into the issues going on with our department, but our folks have been very, very stressed because there was we're down about 30 or 40% in personnel, so people have to work a lot more, mandated. So, a dear colleague of mine used to say, it's important we properly train people and we have people with good heads on their shoulders because when you call for help, do you want someone showing up with a bucket of water or a bucket of gasoline? So, ROAR. What is ROAR? This is the answer to the following question. What do most calls for service have in common? What do most calls for service have in common? This is not only for cops. This is for outreach workers. The Los Angeles County Fire Department adopted this. So this is not only for law enforcement. This is for anybody who has contact with clients and in the community. So what do most contacts with people have in common? Well, you're responding to their situation, right? You're en route. You typically go somewhere, if that's the case, if you're doing field work. When you arrive, you observe, you're looking, you assess how critical it is, and then you react. Simple, right? I'm going to skip the response. Well, I shouldn't skip response. How important is it when you're going to somebody's house to know what's going on in that house? Have you ever found yourself in a tough situation because you arrived there and you found a surprise? And it was an unpleasant surprise? You're like, whoa, this is dangerous. We should have known about this.
If you have guns, yes.
Guns, people, whatever, yeah. What if there's somebody there that doesn't want you there? Leave my daughter alone. Leave my brother alone. You people don't help? Whatever. So in responding to the situation, what if there's some sort of unrest in the neighborhood? Is that important? So this is all part of the response phase. This is you responding to go to the location. When you arrive on location, there are 4 things that could help you or hurt you. What are they? This is pretty much any situation. And the beauty of this is that it doesn't matter what continent you live on either. This is why we think ROAR is cool. What are 4 things that help you or hurt you when you arrive on scene? Well, we call it the subject of the call. So our patient, our client, our consumer, they could help us or hurt us. We have the environment that could help us or hurt us. We have the victims, the informants, the passersby, the family, other people around that could help us or hurt us. There's one more group that could help us or hurt us. Who is it? On any situation when we go out in the field, who is it? How about us as the responders? Can we help or hurt the situation as well? This is what we drill into our deputies. You can create problems too when you show up. Do you think that's important to address? Is that consistent with transparency and all sorts of other accountability related issues? So this is taking a closer look at how each of those 4 areas can either help or hurt, can either stabilize or destabilize. What we like about this is that the subject of the call or the consumer, whatever it is that you want to use the term, we can even specify if you'd like to focus on a particular condition. So what if you're doing training on individuals living with schizophrenia? Now we could put schizophrenia stabilizing, destabilizing factors. We could do it with a condition. We could do it with whatever it is, right? Depending on a special population you may be working with. The environment. How can the environment help us or hurt us? What if there's dogs, lots of dogs, wild dogs, right? Is that important to try to figure out what to do with those dogs, right? What if we are what if there's a flood? So there could be a lot of environmental factors. What's fascinating is that all of you who do this kind of work, as soon as you show up at a location, innately, instinctively, what are you doing? You're converting as many of the destabilizing factors into stabilizing factors. So if there's a large knife that's just laying there, maybe someone will pick it up and put it away, kind of move it out of the way. Or what if there is whatever it is, right? You just start looking around to see if appropriate, again, depending on culture and what have you, but you start doing things to further stabilize the situation. What if your consumer is standing next to a very tall sort of landing or somewhere where they could fall? Might not you say, hey, let's come and talk over here, right? Because this is dangerous. So you're already doing this. The victim, informant, family members, how they can stabilize or destabilize. This is another phase where you can enter specific aspects of a population you're working with. And there are accompanying stabilizing, destabilizing factors. So what if you're working with immigrants, Somali, predominantly Muslim, low socioeconomic status, undocumented, whatever it is, this can be educational about that particular group. So there's flexibility here on some of these variables that you can use. Because again, we believe these variables are very important in stabilizing your situation. And this is the first responder, right? This is the self factor, whoever's responding. Has anybody here ever escalated a situation? I have. What do you do? So right away you start thinking, what am I doing? I better change my tactic here, right? We believe we've been too quick to go to de-escalation techniques without understanding the problem. With ROAR, what we seek to do is take a few steps back, have a more global perspective on the situation so that we can use more accurate or proper techniques. And again, we don't like de-escalation, we like crisis stabilization. Because with crisis stabilization, we're covering both escalation and de-escalation. So why is de-escalation or crisis stabilization so complex? How would you explain to somebody? Hey, why do people in your line of work have such a hard time calming people down? How might you react? How might you respond? It's complex. You know why it's complex? So we think this is huge. Because Each one of these 4 has a triangle attached to it. Does that make sense? Each one of these 4 has the potential to escalate and de-escalate. So when I show up and I'm dealing with an individual who's in crisis, I must consider to stabilize this, that, and that. Any one of those 4, if they're not stabilized, I could have a serious problem. That's why we think there's the complexity in de-escalation, which again, we like to call crisis stabilization. All contacts have 2 windows of opportunity. Have you ever noticed that when you're talking with someone, at times it seems like things are going well, and then at other times it seems like things are not going well? And you're like, darn it, we could have done something. We shouldn't have waited this long. Or it could be the opposite. Hold on, we're not ready yet, hold on. These are the windows of opportunity that are present in all contacts with people. There's 2 windows that relate to safety and rapport. Safety and rapport. Safety and rapport. All contacts have these 2 windows of opportunity. And what do the windows do during your contact? Up and down, up and down. They move, they're dynamic. This is the beauty of field work. We believe that really good field responders understand this, but innately. We've never seen this described or concretely expressed. Why is that important? Because you don't have to wait 15 or 18 years of going out there and doing this. We can now grab this and give it to people, and they don't have to go through countless mistakes and lots of years of pain. Because isn't it true that people who like their jobs are typically good at their jobs? Well, we believe this could help people be good at their jobs because they understand their jobs. One of these days, we want to address how ROAR addresses implicit bias. What's implicit bias? Anybody want to take a stab? Come on. You're an intelligent bunch. What's implicit bias? What's a simple way? It's kind of like our unconscious stuff, right? It's what we don't realize is affecting us in a situation, right? So with implicit bias, we seek to minimize intuition and maximize analysis. With implicit bias, we don't want to hear, I had a gut feeling. What's your gut feeling? Nobody cares about your gut. Tell me what you saw. What's your analysis of the situation? We believe ROAR can help with that because you can go to the stabilizing and destabilizing factors and start firing off. I saw this destabilizing factor and this. It wasn't until the mom came in and, okay, I have like a 0 minute left. That was just, that's a clue. So this is huge with ROAR in terms of the safety and rapport. The 2 windows of opportunity that are available in all calls, in all contacts, and ultimately what you're looking to do based on your windows, you either slow it down or you speed it up. You're going to slow it down if your windows are open and you have the time, and you're going to speed it up, especially if your safety is being threatened. Thank you. Please, if anybody would like to speak, I'm available.
Thank you, Pietro. Really appreciate that. I think the context for everyone here, again, for a really wealthy nation like the United States of America, a really wealthy county like the Los Angeles County, within which resides Los Angeles City, and the glitter of Hollywood, really, the shine and the celebrity, also has images like these where people line the streets in tents with absolute deprivation and poverty. So the kind of work that Dr. Pietro and his team in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is doing is extremely commendable, because that's really not the perception in the kind of the normal populace for what cops do in the United States. So kudos to you and your team. Really appreciate you being here.